Yes. Hello, everyone. It's nice to have you here this evening. We have Mike again with us, so we'll be traveling to Australia and North Carolina again, and we are so excited. So, Mike, you can come in at any time you are ready. You could give us what you have been up to since the last time we chatted.
Yeah, thank you for having me again today. And just been enjoying island life, living on Sand Island here with the weather. And we had friends visit, so I'm just living my day to day.
Nice, nice. All of us can do with that rest and relaxation every week because we are out here working so hard. So it's good, as I was telling you, to have a nice balance and make some time for some friends and family. All right. And even now, we're keeping it on the S, friends, family, finances. So of course, we're gonna be talking a little bit more about finances. And you have a wealth of experience since you've been helping many individuals get control of their finances over the last couple of years. When you spoke about last week how you were able even to help that one family, that really changed her life and her children's lives as well. Can you think about any other experience that you have to show how impactful financial coaching is?
Yeah, and just quickly, I want to say that I don't have my video going today because my internet is a bit unstable, but hopefully everyone can hear me clearly on the recording and today. But yeah, there's something else that came up this week. I had a friend that I've been friends with for nearly 20 years, or maybe more actually.
Mm-hmm.
And she took a long time to get on board with the financial advice, but she did, and it's been a few years and she's been in control, and just this year she's really on fire, just meaning all these other things you just had mentioned about other areas outside of finances, relationships, rest and relaxation, family, uh, everything is related. And for her, these things came into play, and she's really focused on her health. She's really focused on work, and I think friends and family as well. So I would like to share that once you get control of one area of your life, it doesn't have to happen right then, but other areas of your life start to come into control as well. And health and wealth tend to be very closely related. It's very common for someone to get out of debt and to become more healthy and potentially lose weight during that same period of time, because now they have the confidence to go forward and know that they have the ability to control themselves.
Right. Very, very impactful. And that is something that I can say, even for me, that's exactly what has happened. And even again, now as I make progress in terms of my finances, again, as I was telling my husband, you can ask him up to yesterday, I was telling him from today for the next 90 days, this is what I'm going to do with my health. This is what I'm going to do with my fitness. So in the next 90 days, you're going to see a different Sasha emerge in the next couple months. So right now, that living example that you're speaking about, Mike, that discipline helps not only in finances, but it helps in your entire life. It's just like goals in general, and you just use that same discipline in each goal, right down through your life. So that's it. That's a beautiful example. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Discipline begets discipline. It's contagious. It's inspiring. It's all of these things. So well said. And I'm excited to see the new Sasha.
Yeah. Thank you. I know I have you rooting for me. At least one person is rooting for me. Two people, three people. You see how much support I got already? So if I got this support for my goal, I know that I can get there, right? I just need a plan, support, and to turn up myself. So that's the same thing for health, the same thing for finances. So really now we are really trying to help individuals here in Barbados understand that you can get that same 1, 2, 3 for your finances. And don't matter if the goal is for 10,000 or 1 million, by getting help even with these smaller numbers, is getting that control so that you will even be able to reach those bigger numbers. The same process. Just rinse and repeat, and you will get to reach your goals. So we can talk to Rosanna. And Jabbar, if they want to say anything specifically that they want to get some feedback on in terms of finances or in terms of the workshop we're doing now, in terms of savings and earnings, if there are any questions.
Well, I can talk for a minute,
Go ahead.
right? Right. So Mike, here in Barbados, we tend to be very private when it comes to our finances, right? Sasha is into a good field, and it is very practical for us. So it's pretty much a question for Sasha. How do you be able to convey the importance? I know you have said it, maybe you have tried to say it a couple of times, but how can you dig in to help us here in our culture to appreciate the importance of finance? You know, you said that it's health and our wealth is all connected. Yes, we can say that, but how would you be able to help um, individuals to understand the importance? Because financial coaching here, Barbados, is is very difficult. At least conveying that idea to us. So how do you think would be a good approach to approach it? If that's the right. That's the gist of my question.
Thank you. I appreciate your question. So how I can communicate the value to others is what you're asking.
Yes, please.
So, okay. So for you, I would ask you this question. Do you see the value of it?
Of course.
Okay. Did you always see the value?
No, like Mike just said, the lady over 20 years, for a while she was resisting it, but after a while she did. So likewise.
So what changed for you? How did you get to see the value?
Right. So what we did is that we started to just simply track our income and our expenses, and that really highlighted for me um, where we were bleeding out money. Right. So it helped me to reel in my spending. Right. But I understand that, but the majority of people don't seem to get that idea.
Right. So the same way you had to go through that same process, see the value yourself and experience it, that is how we'll be able to communicate to others the value of doing it themselves. Because finances and being stressed out about finances, the vast majority of people are very stressed. So when they get to see even like in a workshop like this or see the recording on this video and they realize I am so stressed out as well, but I would like to have the experience, like Mike, for example, his testimonial to show the before and the after. So even though you may be nervous sometimes about going to the doctor, it may be a sensitive topic that you want to talk to your doctor about. But when you hear about the relief that is coming at the end, you start to talk. You start to open up to it because you don't want that situation to be plaguing you anymore. You want the bellyache gone, you want the headache gone. So you talk to the doctor once it's in a confidential manner about what you're going through so you can get the assistance. It's the same thing with the finances. You start to talk because you don't want to be stressed out. You don't want to be fighting with your spouse anymore. You don't want to be missing out on sleep or missing out on helping your children even be happier because you can help them more as they go through life. All of those things communicate value, and therefore when you start to experience it, you're going to start to want to go through the process as well, just as you did. Just that simple tracking, which is what we're even focusing on in this workshop. At the end of the 30 days, everybody is going to hold up their head and realize, wait, I do this tracking, and from this I realize that, again, as you said, you're bleeding money in these areas. I definitely need to hold back going forward because I want this $800 to work hard just like I am. So I'm giving it a name. Just as Mike said last time, if you don't give it a name, it's called spent. So everybody starts to realize, no, I'm not wasting this money anymore. I have better things to do with my money. I have a future to set up for my children, all of these things. And that value starts the process going that they want to commit to that change. Mike, I don't know if you want to come in now and say anything about that question.
I think you just took everything that I was thinking and just verbalized it. It was beautiful. Well stated.
Thank you. Yes, and Jabar, that answer your question completely, or you wanted to follow up before we go to Rosanna?
Yes, yes, please. Yes, please. Yeah. Yeah, I
Okay, thank
appreciate
you.
that. Yeah.
All right. Yes, please, Rosanna.
Yeah, so just like with exercising or with anything that we try to do that is beneficial, consistency is very hard. So I have a question about that. How to maintain the consistency when it comes to your finances, because it could be a little challenging. You start off, yes, you see the benefits, but some at some point along the way, you're not consistent with it. So any advice relating to that consistency?
Thank you for that question. I can appreciate where you're coming from as well. And with any goal, when we do start, especially when you're accustomed doing it a different way, it's hard to keep on that path. But before I give my piece, I will let Mike come in if he wants to jump on this question first. I went first on the last one.
Yeah, thanks. Rosanna, is there something specific that maybe you were struggling with that comes to mind?
Everything. So okay, so I okay, sometimes you have a lot of ideas as regards finances and other things, workshop, whatever, business. But I guess in relation to the finances, which is what we're talking about, with saving, with achieving certain financial goals, how what can you do to be consistent with that?
I'll give you an example and see if this helps to understand and answer your question. For example, when people have, say, let's go with the number 5 different debts that they have to pay off. It's like a car, a student loan, credit card, and so a couple other things furniture that they've taken loans on. When you list those out, you mathematically you think, oh, I'm going to pay the highest interest rate off first because mathematically that makes sense. But you run into these obstacles or the inconsistency and you don't see progress. So I teach people to list their debts smallest to largest, regardless of the interest rate, and then pay the smallest one off first, take everything from there and put it onto the second one, take the next one, and then the third and fourth, fifth. And that's called the debt snowball. The reason for that is because you get those wins. You get the emotional wins. The math says otherwise, but I jokingly say if we were doing math, we wouldn't be in debt in this example. Because we have to have those emotional wins. Let's relate that example to health. If someone's there to lose weight and they are measuring it by jumping on a scale, but they don't see the weight going down, that doesn't give you the emotional energies to keep going, right? You're not going to eat one salad and then lose 5 kilos. You gotta stick with it, exercise that muscle, whatever it is, if it's the financial muscle or the health muscle, but you also have to see the progress in the small wins. So does that example help?
Definitely, especially the part we're starting with the smallest first, because it is easy to conclude that the best idea is to start with the largest and get that out of the way. But when you said that, it reminded me of the same thing that my husband and I are doing. We didn't look at it from the standpoint that you just mentioned, but it's something that we have been doing in terms of getting the smallest ones out of the way. But again, yes, it answered the question. So because for me, consistency is a struggle. You can see it, you can see the benefits of being consistent, but I don't know, maybe laziness, maybe you tell yourself, all right, well, all right, maybe next month we could focus on that instead of this month or something like that. So consistency from that standpoint of focusing on the lowest paying one first and then work your way up makes sense to me. So again, it's to be consistent with that. I think having maybe more than one expense can be a challenge as to which one to focus on, but that was a really good example for me. Thank you.
Covered.
Yeah, that's
You did cover that question beautifully. As soon as you were starting to go through it, the snowball came in my head. And it's interesting, just as Rosanna asked that question, we take it back to health all the time. Even like just now when I told y'all my health goal, I went from just saying it to myself in the mirror, for example, to 3 people that supported me. You know what that did? That made me more accountable because I now know that 3 of y'all also know what my goals are. And so I'm gonna have to keep my word not only to myself, but 3 more people. You see what support does? So when I don't feel like moving out of bed to go and exercise, or when I don't feel like eating any salad, I'm gonna remember I told not only myself, but Mike, Jabbar, and Rosanna that I have this goal. So all of a sudden I have more motivation. So similarly with your finances, when you have that support, you see right here, you have Mike, you have me, we all trying to help everybody with their finances. When you have those days that you don't feel like doing it, you have even that same example that Mike so nicely used with his snowball. You would have not thought about that just as he explained it the same way. So that helped already. But even on those days, you have like a personal trainer. You have that financial trainer now to tell you, okay, this is the process, stay to this, and I'm also here to support you through every step. So just like now, I may need a personal trainer or I may need a gym membership, but there are different ways to get support. So now you have group training, you also have one-on-one financial coaching as well, so that when you lose that momentum, somebody is always here to tell you, all right, get back up. We could do it this way. And the same way, in terms of debt and so on, there are many different strategies that many people don't know that they can be applied. So just you may go trying to, at one point, you may want to use the snowball, and then there may be another strategy that a financial coach again may be able to come and tell you, okay, this is going to get us from this point A to point C. So again, you just have that person with knowledge, those nuggets to be able to help you. That's the beauty of having a personal trainer or a financial coach.
Thank you.
You're most welcome. Thank you for your question.
So I
And
just wanted to
just to
hear.
add to that
Oh, sorry.
was just to keep us as accountability partners, like coaches. We're also keeping you accountable, right? Sasha, with the health goal, we're just here. We'll be in accountability, support crew, all of those different words as well. So well said. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I just wanted to ask Mike a question because the last thing that he mentioned about money that doesn't have a name is spent. You know, even that little bit of advice went a long way for me because as I was telling Sasha the other day, he had a little extra money, you know, after paying bills, etc. And I was like, oh boy, I have some money now that I need to spend. So like Rosanna is saying, you know, sometimes discipline is important. So I just wanted to ask this question with reference to that. Like, um, can I know it's important to be disciplined, but can we have an account that is specifically for spending?
Absolutely. And I think we all should do that. That's a very common thing that people miss, myself included. I have to create a line in the budget or the cash flow plan that says play money or spending money, his, hers, whatever that is. Now, it doesn't have to be $1,000, right? It can be $20, but it does. It needs to be allocated because sometimes you just need to go out and get a coffee or a magazine or get your nails done, whatever that thing is, but it needs to be planned, right? We know that that's something that we may want to do in the next 4 weeks. Then let's set the money aside because the money's already there. Because if we don't put it aside for the hair or the nails, then it's going to be spent somewhere else. So it has to have that specific name and make as many plans or items on the budget that you can think of that come up, and then work your way backwards if you have too many things that you want to spend money on and not enough money. That's where we come back and we adjust it accordingly. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, yes, it does. I appreciate that because sometimes, well, for me, I feel guilty, especially knowing that Sasha's managing the account. So I'm like, oh dear, if I spend, oh boy, um, what is going to happen? So I appreciate the fact that Mike said, we need to have a little spank account, just in case. So we'll have to discuss. I'd have to discuss with my wife what is the the spank account, based on the solid advice of Mike.
I also have a side question. So just like how gardening is therapeutic for some people and then a variety of other hobbies, I guess this spent part here of the finances can be therapeutic for some as well, right?
Yes, for sure. And I'm laughing here because I know Jabbar is campaigning for his own spank account. So he can tell me, what Mike said? Mike said. So Mike, somehow I know your
Oh, I
your
wish
name
you
is
guys
gonna
could
be
see the
called.
smile on my face. This is so fun.
He's just gonna be quoting Mike, when we're sitting down to go through this budget. But even the guy was telling y'all with us before we started tracking, when we found out after tracking that specific month that we were losing and bleeding out $800. It wasn't that you had to use that $800 and just say, okay, no more fast food. What you could have done, like what we did, was to turn around and take $600, make that $600 um with a name so it will not be spent anymore. We allocated it to another more important expense, but we were still able to go and get a dinner, even though all the rest of the time it helped us to be able again to get our health on track because we cooked at home and had a lot of good recipes and stuff. But it doesn't mean that you have to cut out spending on what you like altogether. Because just like how we were talking at the beginning, being balanced with Mike and having time to get R&R and those things, we all need self-care as well. We don't want to work to the point we are so exhausted you have no time for your friends, family. I can't go with Rosanna and have a girl's day out and go to the spa or get my nails done. Then life will not be exciting. And it's too beautiful a life to not have any excitement in it. So again, a lot of people think as soon as you say budget, you have to live on the bare minimum and ration even the toilet paper and all of those things, because some people do that. But I mean, it is showing that you can still have that little spend area. Just give it a name, as Mike said, and you name that in your spend for his or her. You can still give honey a gift, all of those things. So that's a beautiful question as well. And I know I'm going to be hearing Mike's name very regularly. Thank you, Mike.
So I have,
Yes,
Simon,
that's amazing.
I have another question because in relation to what
And
you were talking about earlier, with reference to paying off the debt, right? So of course, is that because it's debt, so you have limited funds coming back in. How do we go about how do we go about paying off the debt? So if we have loans, credit cards, how do we go about paying off those debts, or which debts we need to cover first? I hope you understand the question.
yeah, so you want to make sure that you make the minimum payments on everything so you don't get behind. And then you're going to want to attack the smallest one first. Again, smallest to largest, that snowball. By doing that, you get those emotional wins and you get the momentum and those kind of things. So I suggest selling things, finding more income, cutting out temporarily. And the key word there is temporarily, going out to eat, getting your nails done, spa, because it's for a short period of time. And then take that money, focus it, and put it on the debt. And do that at the beginning of the month. Because let me tell you, when you go ahead and you put all that money towards that first debt, then you find a way to live on the rest of the money instead of living on that money. And then telling yourself, I'll put the rest of it, the leftover on it in a month's time. It doesn't work. You've got to pay it off first, and then you're going to find a way to live on the rest. Some other creative things could be to sell things around the house. Man, just endless. I don't know. I'm not from in your country, but I know in Australia, you can just go up and get part-time work, Uber, or, delivering foods and those kind of things. And I'm sure there's something, maybe babysitting or something that people need help with. And just that's another creative way. And the beautiful thing about getting extra work or a second job in this scenario is you don't have time to spend money. You're too tired. Like, I want you to spend all your time working to make money to get out of debt, and then you'll have freedom. And that's what I have, right? I mentioned that I lived on an island. I live on an island right now. I haven't even went to the mainland to the grocery store for 6 weeks, right? That's something that is an adjustment, but I've set it up where it doesn't matter because I have no payments. The only bill that we have is food, and we can't even get to the grocery store, so there's nowhere else to go out to eat. So we're really learning how to plan for those things, and our cell phone bill. Oh, and the insurance on the car, because we have a car. So our expenses are probably less than $800 a month for 2 people. And I'm not telling you to be like me, right? Like, when I tell people that, I want that to be an inspiration, but I don't need you to be like me, because there's nowhere for me to get my nails done. I don't have any hair, all these things, right? But if that's something that you want to do, then do it. But also, I want you to focus on getting out of debt, because becoming the friend that I mentioned about this at the beginning, about from 20 years ago, I don't care what she spends her money on. She buys things that I don't do, and she does things that I don't do. But now that she's debt free, she didn't realize the benefit other than the numbers. She thought while you're in debt, you're just looking at the numbers and you think, oh, that's all there is to it. But there's an emotional part of it at the end of the tunnel, like the light at the end of the tunnel, if you will, and the weight that will literally fall off your shoulders, the lightness, the joy. And Jabbar, you got kids in the background. Man, how cool is it going to be for them to witness you without the stress of this debt? How cool is it you're going to be able to teach these kids to never be in the same situation that you are? You can change your family tree today by making the decision that you're going to get out of debt, you're going to make sacrifices, and you're going to make sure that they never feel the same struggles you do. But it comes down to you and Sasha, right? You got to have the conversation. You got to be a team. And you got this. You can do this, but it comes down to a decision that you have to make.
Yeah, thanks, mate. I appreciate that. Right? Yeah. I think because as Rosanna said, sometimes it can be a little difficult, but as you said, and you already said, it's important to make those sacrifices, because in the long run, at the end of the tunnel, it's going to work out for the best. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
I
Yeah,
like
and
it.
I may have went off topic there. I kind of just started rambling. I apologize, but yeah, if that didn't answer your question, man, ask it again. Ask it a different way, please. I'm here to support.
You answered the question. You answered the question, and then you ramble on. So the important thing is that you answer the question, and what you say, I appreciate, because I don't want. Rosanna, you wanted to say something before you continue?
When you finish.
No, you go ahead. You go ahead. Cause I want to make another point. Ask another question.
Okay, I just like the part when he mentioned that certain things are just temporary. That's a very important thing to point to remember. If I'm not doing my nails this month, it's just temporary. If that's something that you like to do. But certain things you just put on pause. You hit the pause button on. It's just temporary until you reach a certain way in your finances before it is that you could continue. So I like that part. That's something that I think is very important for many people, especially those who do not like change. Some people do not like change. To know that they have to stop doing something is very hard. So to know that you could just put it on pause, you're not stopping, you're just putting it on pause, and you'll come back to that when you're in a better situation in life, right? So I like that part. Just wanted to mention it.
Very,
Yeah,
very good.
that is a great point, because I mentioned that our expenses are like $800 a month. But if we chose to go out to eat, you know where we get to go out to eat? Anywhere we want, because we got money in the bank, right? We got savings, we got retirement funded, and all these things. So great realism, great takeaway, I should say. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Rosanna.
Yes, good job, Mike, in handling that question beautifully. You didn't ramble in a bad sense. You rambled and gave us all the more nuggets of wisdom. So we appreciate everything that you did say. And it's important that point that Rosanna spoke about as well, because many people do feel that if they have to sacrifice everything from now until retirement on after, but it's really just a small sacrifice. So we could keep putting it back to health all the time. Cause I was telling Jabbar that no, this is what I'm gonna do for the next 3 months. I'm gonna attack how I'm exercising. I'm gonna attack what I'm putting in my body. I'm gonna talk about rest. The more I do those things and I focus on that goal, the results are going to be massive. But it doesn't have to be for the next 10 years. I could do that in 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, get to where I want to get in a short period of time. If I just focus and say I'm gonna make the sacrifice for now, and then I maintain it. So similarly with the finances, if you are to a point in terms of the $800 is completely wasted that we were speaking about earlier, then we can recoup all of that money and put it in all the different areas for a short period of time. That extra $200 even, and that may be another bill, that a utility bill or so that it may be trying to catch up on. So all of those things in terms of massive action does help, and making sure that sacrifice, even though it is a sacrifice, it doesn't have to be a long period of time. That's the flexibility, but you get peace of mind from doing all of these things. So it's not just finances, it's for, again, you change your family tree, as Mike said. Even the children that are coming up now, we can really help them not to have to go through all of these stresses as well. So it's just a beautiful opportunity. And I'm glad that all of these questions are coming, because many who are gonna look at this video, they're gonna have some of the same questions about looking at finances. So good job. Jabari, you said you had another question?
Actually, just was just saying that maybe like a statement on appreciation, because a couple things that Mike said on the last call I really appreciated in terms of like with that, because I my business now require me having to get a vehicle that I can transport stuff on the back. And you know the point that Mike made about doing with what you have really hit home to me without going into debt. So I think that's something that I really appreciated. Of course, it's something that me and you, Sasha, would have discussed. But that's just something that I appreciated. Work with what you have, and sometimes that is no, I've come to appreciate the importance of that. Work with what you have instead of going into debt for certain things. But so, well, here's a question. But suppose there's a debt that comes up that you can't avoid. Maybe it is a medical expense. Um, Something just comes up. How do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because these things do come up, and this is all about planning as well. And this is what I have termed emergency fund. So we need to have an emergency fund set aside. So I teach, have $1,000 for these type of things until and then that's the next step, is to pay off all of your debt except for your mortgage, and then go back and then make that emergency fund 3 to 6 months of expenses. So it's $1,000 while you're getting out of debt, because on average, you should be able to get out of debt within 2 years or less. And then you go back and have a fully funded emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of your expenses. And the example that I gave of us currently spending $800 a month, so just to round that up to $1,000, so that's either $3,000 to $6,000 set aside in an emergency fund. I actually do have more than that, because we're in a special circumstance where we don't have any rent to pay, and other transport costs and stuff like that, because we're living and working where we are. So if I were to go back to a town to get a job, then I need to be able to cover rent, or if I, in my case, my parents are getting older, and if I was to fly back from Australia to North Carolina, I need to have money set aside for that if there's an emergency. And that's what I've termed to be, say 10, 15, 20 grand, whatever that is. Everyone's different, and that number can change as well. But yeah, that's the emergency fund that you need to have set aside for things, because we don't know when our parents are going to pass. We don't know when our kid's going to break their arm. We don't know anything, and there could be a serious accident. Let's see if this resonates at all. Say, Jabbar, you're there looking after the kids, and Sasha's out with Rosanna getting their hair done, but they got into an accident, and sadly, Sasha, she doesn't make it home. Man, what are you going to do? Right now, you just became a single dad in a moment, but you need to have money to be able to, one, grieve. You need to be able to feed your kids, continue to pay rent or your mortgage. Like, those things happen, and we don't think it's going to happen to us, but sadly it happens every single day. And that's the importance of getting out of debt and having the emergency fund. Because if you don't have any debt and you have $10,000 sitting in the bank, in that scenario, Sasha gets an accident and she dies, you get to have the time of the grief period, without the stress of the money and the bills and all these things. You get to actually sit there and with your kids and grieve the loss. So it's very important to have the emergency fund.
Right. Okay. Right. Okay. Understood. Understood. I appreciate that. Thanks. Thank you.
I absolutely love that interaction y'all just had,
Well,
because
excuse me, Sasha, just want to interrupt you. Just wanted to tell Mike that that's something that you've been preaching to me for a long time in terms of the emergency fund, right? So yes, thanks.
and I'm really, really glad that y'all are able to interact like that, because sometimes when it's your spouse that is trying to tell you something, you might hear but you're not necessarily listening. He, as he said earlier, he got the value as I did my part to implement it for us. So he saw that, even in terms of the emergency fund and everything, because he knew the importance of that. I did my own emergency fund, but he didn't know that I did my emergency. We had an emergency fund, but then when the emergencies came up after getting out of the credit card usage and so on, then the money was there for the emergency. But now that y'all have that connection, he is going to be on board now with putting aside this money for the emergency. So I'm very happy that y'all are having a man-to-man conversation right now, right? And sometimes he may think that I am always forever here, but I draw some of the same illustrations that you just did to him. What if I don't come home and it's just you and the babies? What can happen then? So it's really, this real talk is very good. It's good for him. It's good for all of us. And again, everybody that listens to this is going to benefit as well, because we do not have tomorrow put down. Even with things, how life is going now, COVID, even here we had the volcanic ash, nobody could go outside even. And you stuck at home, money may not be coming in. You're so stressed out, you got children, everybody at home. But what about all the debt too? So then you're at home stressed out. When you just start doing the simple processes as budgeting, at least for that step one, it may sound like a little to some, but that simple process can be very challenging, as was mentioned earlier. But you stick to the challenge, because you know on the other side, you're not going to be stressed out anymore. Like Mike said, that example of you showing how you and your partner experience that freedom now is beautiful, that peace of mind. So all of those things that you have to worry about in life, your parents not being able to assist them, even your children not being able to give them the upbringing that you want to give them, all of those things are beautifully wrapped up in that conversation y'all just had. So I really, really love it. Well done. I think Rosanna had a question, but she's going to come back. So we can just
I
chat
want
until
to,
she comes back.
yeah, I want to tag back and continue on with that just real quick. Is something that I had to learn as a man was we we possess, no, sorry, we don't possess something that women possess. So women actually have a gland that we don't have. Women have a security gland, meaning that they need that safety and that comfort of that emergency fund. So for me, when I was in my 20s, my emergency fund I thought was okay at $3,000 or $5,000. And for years, I thought that was okay. But then I had to realize, oh man, this actually could be, this could get worse. And then I get into a relationship. Oh shit, now I got this to take care of. Now we don't have any children, but if we did, then those are other things I got to think of. So it steadily grew from say 3,000 to 5,000 to 10,000 in this emergency fund over time, because I grew up in financial, I become more financially mature, if you will. And women know that and feel that, and they just want it right off the bat. I have a lot of clients that are women that they prefer to have the 3 to 6 months set aside before they pay off the debt. And look, that's not what I teach, but if people wanted to do that, that's fine. But it's not is more beneficial to get out of debt first and then get the fully funded emergency fund. But that is just something I wanted to add for the difference between men and women in some scenarios.
Yeah. So in other words, listen to my wife. Thank you. I will remember that.
Well stated.
Well, we really had the example of Abraham and Sarah. It's so
Thanks, Mike.
important. It's so important. But yeah, what I wanted to mention was the same thing that Jabbar had touched on when he talked about what you had mentioned the last time, making use of what you already have. I can see the value in that, especially when it comes to cities, small space, or the area that I live in right now. Wanting to do so many things and say, you know what, maybe you don't need a bigger space at this time. Maybe you can do with what you have. So I was still able to do a flower garden. I was still able to do a kitchen garden using, even though I had a small space, but using the buckets and pallets and making the most out of the space that I have. That has helped to cut down the supermarket bill and being able to grow my own herbs and some vegetables and what's not. Not only that, with the flower garden, people will pass and they will see it. I've given away plants already that I can make money off of because some of these plants cost like $10 at the plant store, $5. So that's additional income that could be coming in just from making use of just a small area in the yard and a small area to the front of my house. And so yeah, so I agree. I'm living proof of that. Making the use of what I have. Even though I teach online at home, I would like a whole entire room for to teaching, but for right now I'm in the corner in my kitchen. And that's working very good for me. I'm making use of the corner of my kitchen as my little classroom and still making money from it. So and it's okay. It doesn't matter. I don't need a room. I'm fine. So yeah, I agree. Just we just need to get to the mindset where it is that no, you don't need to go and get something new all the time. If it's not necessary, you could just find a way to make use of what you already have.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm glad you brought that to light again, and hopefully that inspires others. And I'm very similar. Everything that my partner and I own fit in a car. Everything we own, and that's just us. And the way that we live is very transient, very minimalistic. To the school situation, I've actually had conversations with clients when I pulled over into a park. Right, I just on the park bench and just had an hour conversation with them. So the value is still there. You're still going to be a good teacher no matter where your classroom is.
All right, so Sasha, I don't mean to interrupt, but the reason why I had to go and come back is I got a reservation for a lesson at 7. So I have to leave you guys.
All right, no problem. Maybe we'll wrap up now as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because we said the hour max, so we are funny enough and booked to come to that time right now. So here I'm gonna say thank you to everybody. I really enjoyed this session. Thank you, Mike. It won't be the same without you. Thank you, Jabbar, and thank you, Rosanna, for taking the time out. And the same way y'all showed up to be able to assist, you also showed up for yourselves and your family. And we are gonna continue to focus on helping as many people as we can to get that peace of mind as financial coaches to get that peace of mind passed on to as many of individuals as possible. So, Mike, any closing remarks?
That's it. No, thank you for the participation and everyone's questions. And I really hope that the recording reaches those that need to hear it. So thank you again for having me on.
You're welcome anytime. All right. So I'm gonna
Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.
bye-bye.
Bye-bye.